All right. Hello, everyone. Today is March 2, 2018. This is the meeting of the CSI implementation group for Kubernetes. Let's go to the agenda and get started. So first on the agenda, PRs that needed attention from last time. The conclusion last time was that Sergey and Luis were going to reach out to Andrew and figure out whether Go CSI could be modified to pull out the mock. And it sounds like they weren't able to do that. Sergey, do you want to give an update here?
Right. I hope you can hear me well.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So Luis sent issue to the Go CSI, and basically Andrew's reply was that he won't modify his Go CSI, he won't split into the different pieces, and he suggested us to basically start our own. So based on this feedback, what we've done is we took a mock, and then I a little bit refactored it to be able to run it as a separate piece, and we dump it in the CSI tests.
Okay.
So at this point, end-to-end tests are running.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and then basically that's one, while working on this, that's one of the reason I came up with that list I shared earlier, because I saw some inconsistencies and
okay. So we could go to that next if you'd like to give an update on that.
Sure. I haven't pasted it because it's too large, so I wasn't sure what would be the best way.
You could share your screen and just walk through it if you'd like.
I mean, you'll need to tell me how to. Okay, hang on. Share.
There'll be a share screen button at the bottom, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so where's the list? Just a second. That's strange. It doesn't give me the application where I have that. Okay, let me do share screen, and then can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so the goal was basically two goals. First, since I was planning to refactor Ceph CSI plugin, I wanted to make sure that I return all the return codes according to the spec. So that's one. And the second, for the mock driver, to be able to build reliable and trustworthy end-to-end tests, I wanted to be 100% clear with what's expected, what behavior is expected. So I went through every single call in the CSI spec, and I tried to come up with some sort of a negative test. And at the same time, I put the expected behavior. Example, like create volume with a specific name, then create volume with the same name, shouldn't fail according to the CSI spec. And then, I mean, if let's say there is with the same volume name but with a different capacity, then it should fail with this specific code. So I went one by one and I checked that. That's what I mean. There is a good chance I either miss something or maybe misinterpret something. That's why I would really appreciate if somebody, or actually if everybody, could at least, you know, take a look and see if something jumps on them which is not consistent with their understanding of the spec. All right. And then well, Luis unfortunately is not in. Then, I mean, when we kind of clean it up and agree that that's the expected behavior, then we could do two things. First, well, we can split this and ask for help to basically go and program every single E2E test.
And so you foresee these as end-to-end tests on the Kubernetes side?
Yeah, that is correct. Yes, this is yeah, exactly.
So if we do this as an end-to-end test on the Kubernetes side, will we be able to extract these error codes between Kubernetes and CSI in the end-to-end test?
Yes, definitely. We already do that. Like when we run the end-to-end tests,
Yeah.
we looked at the codes dot blah, let's say invalid argument, and we can compare with what error got returned from the gRPC, and then with the expected error, and we can fail.
I haven't looked at the end-to-end test recently, but you're saying that we can set the mock driver to return whatever we want. And then on the receive side, how do we validate that? Because on the Kubernetes side, when something fails, we just get like a standard, like a event that gets created in Kubernetes.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Well, this end-to-end test, I don't think that basically they're related to the Kubernetes. I think you're right. It's not Kubernetes specific because we run the sanity. Okay,
Yeah.
let me show. Yeah. So where's that? There was a sanity thing with the end-to-end tests. Drivers. This one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then no, that's the mock, and then yeah, sanity. Okay. Oh, package sanity. Yeah, here it is. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the what Luis put already together, and we were using it. So we can basically look at the yeah, that's how we can basically check the return code from the gRPC.
Okay. So then the suggestion here is that the list that you've created, if everybody approves it, we update the sanity checker with this logic.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That makes sense.
And another thing is that let's say we can build some sort of a package for a driver developer where they just substitute the mock driver with their own driver and run exactly the same set of tests against their driver. See
Right,
if
which is exactly what this sanity tester is designed to do, right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, cool. So it sounds like this is going to be the next step for the CSI sanity checker. So the ask for everybody is to please review the email that Sergey sent out and make sure that you are in agreement with the specified negative error cases that he has. And if that's the case, then the next step will be to basically modify the CSI sanity checker to handle these cases. And that should be it. And we can parallelize that by just giving different people a different subset of tasks to add to the CSI sanity checker.
Just to confirm, is this modifying current sanity tests because they're not conforming to the spec, or is this adding new tests altogether?
Both, a little bit of both. If you find a test which is not conformant with the spec, it needs to be adjusted. If this specific test is missing, well, we just add it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you do find tests where you're going to modify something, it might be worth raising a flag with everybody else in the group and saying, it looks like we were checking this. I'm changing it to this. Is that valid?
That sounds good. I think I also mentioned in the thread that we should probably talk about the difference between invalid argument and not found. I think there's a little bit of confusion in the spec about actually when to return each. My idea was always invalid argument was when the string of the ID was incorrect itself. So when volume ID or node ID or something, the string was malformed or empty, that would be returned. And then not found is when you can't actually find the resource that the string refers to.
Yeah, so there's actually 3 different use cases, and let me project my screen. That should help clarify this a little bit. So invalid argument should be returned for two cases. When a required field is missing, meaning the request itself is fine, but there's a field that is required that is missing. For example, in the create volume call, like the name field or something like that. That should return an invalid argument. Or one of those fields is invalid or unsupported, meaning it's corrupt or has bad data. For some reason, it doesn't pass validation. So those two cases, meaning fields are invalid or missing, you return invalid argument. For not found, that is exactly what you said, David, which is the resource itself is not found. So this makes sense on things like controller publish calls where you're saying, I want to publish this volume, and that volume does not exist. Then we should return not found. Or it says, I want to attach this volume to this node, and the node does not exist. That means that should be not found. So not found is reserved for cluster resources or storage resources not existing. If you have a field that is missing, then you should return invalid argument.
Okay, sounds good. I think Sergey, did you point out? I remember you pointed out to me one place where it was a little bit confusing. I've forgotten where that was, but I remember you sent me a link.
It was a delete volume. So basically, when we sent volume ID and we don't find this volume ID, we don't fail, we return OK.
Yes, that is in order for us to be idempotent, meaning if you call the delete volume call twice in a row, the first time it'll find the volume and it will delete the volume. The second time it will not find the volume, but in order for the call to be idempotent, it will return an OK response.
But is it a required field?
The volume ID field is required. The field is present. So as far as the request itself is concerned, the request is valid.
Yep.
But when the plugin goes to execute the request, it's going to discover that the volume ID referenced by this ID, the resource doesn't exist. In most of the calls, if the resource doesn't exist, that should return a not found error. But delete volume request is special because the purpose of the delete volume request is to make that resource not exist. And if it doesn't already exist, then what it's trying to accomplish has already been done. So therefore, it should return an OK response.
Yep. All right.
So basically, the delete volume can return invalid argument if the volume ID is just empty.
Correct.
It's a required.
Yes.
But if it's specified, then it will always return OK.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless there is actually a real error. But
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not return a not found.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed while going to the spec, I found some inconsistency where, let's say, one gRPC code had different numerical IDs. Let's say something like I don't remember. I mean, these are weird names, but basically, I saw the same the same name had a different IDs. And I mean, it's just a quick, easy change, but I was wondering, should we do it before the final cut or we could do it after?
What concretely are you talking about?
Okay, do a search for, just a sec, let me see. Okay, look for example, out of range, like capital letters.
Okay.
Okay, Control F.
This one is for create volume.
Okay, no, let me find a good example, because I found different codes, but for the same name of the error.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think one example of that is actually invalid argument. So for example, invalid argument is returned in both of these cases. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, look, failed precondition. So in one case, it's marked as a 9, but there is one instance where it's has a
Oh,
code 10.
yeah.
Another thing, so somebody just copy and paste it without changing the ID.
Yeah, okay, that should be fixed. I was planning to cut 0.2 immediately after this call. It might be worth fixing this, but it doesn't change the actual proto. So
Exactly.
I will go ahead and cut 0.2, but please open an issue against the spec and send out a PR to fix that.
Mhm.
And we'll get that into 0.3. I think the wording here is correct, but the number is incorrect. So go ahead and send out a fix for that when you get a chance. Okay, so Sergey, can you open an issue in the CSI test repo with your list of tests that you have? And we can use that as a place to organize. And you can also revise that list based on the invalid arg versus not found discussion that we had just now.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
And then I think the third issue here was open an issue for incorrect error codes in CSI spec. So that's a to-do. Sergey, can I ask you to do that?
Sure, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay, cool. Thank you very much for all your work there. And it sounds like we now have end-to-end working tests against 0.2 now.
Yeah, it seems to be working with the host plugin,
Okay.
host path plugin. Well, but David found a couple of issues with the Google GCP plugin. So,
Any updates on that, David? Worth discussing here?
Sorry, I don't really follow what issue. Like I found an issue with the external attacher using my plugin.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's been solved.
Okay. And this was an issue with the external attacher itself?
Yeah, it was just vendor. It just had stale vendor directories.
Okay, cool. So we're looking good there. David, were you able to get the GCPD driver working end-to-end?
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
that was the last thing I did yesterday.
Cool, that's awesome. All right. So we're looking good. Next thing is I'm going to cut 0.2 immediately after this meeting, and then I can go ahead and start moving the tags for the internal and the external components to the real 0.2 tag, which should have a very small delta. And that should be it for the internal changes. Then we just need to add end-to-end tests, make sure they're running in CI/CD, and then add all the other tests that we want, including the ones that Sergey suggested, and then update documentation. And that should be it. All right, cool. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
David, that was a good catch with the incorrect the volume size. Because your issue pushed me to check the host path plugin, and I noticed that it doesn't report anything at all. So that's why before the end-to-end test for the size check was failing completely. So now at least I know why.
Okay. Glad I can help.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good job, guys. So all resolved. All right, cool. Thank you very much. We'll reconvene on Monday and take it from there. So continue working on end-to-end tests. And if you are interested, work on documentation, and then I'll work on this 0.1 to 0.2 stuff. See you on Monday.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.